Today we're going to be slab building a toothbrush slash scrub brush holder. See, it's got a little drain right there so that your whatever you've got in there, toothbrushes or scrub brush, the liquid can drain out of the bottom. This part just sort of hangs over the edge of your sink. The feet, I have found, are very useful for keeping water from getting collected underneath here. It gives the water a place to go, and it makes it drain out better. And you'll notice that there's a little bit of a tilt to this. See how this the feet here are thicker on this side and thinner on this side? And that helps give that tilt, which keeps your brush, whichever kind of brush it is, hanging out over the sink part of your sink, and the liquid moving freely out of the container. So this is a very handy design. I'm extremely fond of it. All right, so I have my slab. It's all nice and rolled out and ready to go. And you'll notice, like at this point, the slab is still very much stuck to the canvas. So I want to get it off of the canvas, but before I do that, I'm going to compress the surface with my handy dandy trusty red rubber rib. And this just sort of smooths everything, but also I found that the slabs tend to work better, less warpage. They're just less prone to cracking and stuff if I do all of this compressing. I mean, who knows, maybe it's just sympathetic magic, but it works really well, so who cares, you know, what it is, as long as it works. All right, once I get one side all nice and smoothed out, we can take one of these guys, put it on top, pick the whole shebang up, like so, and peel the canvas away. So that way I don't distort the slab while I'm moving it off of the canvas. Because if you try to pick up and peel the slab, you'll distort it. The slab is still very soft. Now I like to work with fairly soft clay in the slab stage. I find it easier to handle. But it does mean that I need to stick to smaller forms. If I want larger forms, you do need to let your clay sort of firm up a bit. But that's fine. It works great for this. Now, these particular, the Circle-matic patterns are the ones that I really like the best for this project. And to make the body of this, the letter P is the one I use. Now this is the one I often use for mugs and cups, and when I do that, it's like this. But this time, it's going to be upside down, like this. So I'm going to take this and just trace all the way around, just like you think. Because I don't want to distort the slab that I'm going to be using, I'm just going to move the clay around it instead of trying to move the slab that's going to become my piece. Now I like a bevel joint for my pieces, my slab pieces, when I'm putting them together. So instead of just having cut edge to cut edge like this in a butt joint, or flapping them over like this, which gives you a thick spot, by beveling the edge, then you get a really solid seam that is also very smooth. So bevel cutter here, you'll notice this wire right here makes a 45-degree angle. So as long as this edge is up against this cut edge, and this edge here is up against the table, then this will make a perfect 45-degree angled cut. Now I'm going to do a little bit of toothbrush and water to attach the edges to each other, and you need less water than you think. This is more about just sort of roughing the surface up and getting the surface sticky. See how it's like a little bit shiny, but it's not like really super shiny or slickery? That's what you want. Sticky, not slickery. Because this is soft slab going on to soft slab, I don't have to do all of the slipping and scoring I would have to do if this clay were drier. See, keeping my fingers nice and long, supporting on the inside and pushing down on the outside. And you can see I'm not like using the tips of my fingers or pushing really hard. I'm just sort of tacking these edges towards each other with big, soft, strong hands. Again, the simile of Idris Elba or Jason Momoa or Ryan Gosling or Megan Rapone or, I don't know, Sophia Loren, whoever you want to imagine. Soft, strong hands, firm and tender, holding a wriggly puppy. Alright, so now I get to make decisions about the shape. As you can see, it is currently sort of a misshapen oval. That's fine. If I want to make it squared off, which I do, I like the squared off, this is your chance to do it. But you want to make sure that the seam is not going to be in the corner of your square. And the reason for that is because if you have the seam in the corner of your square, it's more likely to crack. That change of direction is too profound and will give you problems. So instead, I'm just going to kind of make sure seam is in the middle, like so. And now I'm just going to start sort of defining my square. Here, let me put this here. Is that better? Cool. So now I'm going to start defining my square. Seam in the middle, like that. And I'm just going to use my fingers really gently and sort of kind of make the base. And again, I'm starting off with like really soft hands. I'm not really being all that hard ass about it because this gives me a chance to sort of zhuzh it into the shape that I want. Like so. And then when I'm like, yeah, that square looks pretty all right, then I'm going to take my pointer finger and I'm going to run it up the inside while the outside hand like this sort of holds it steady. You can also use a pencil or, you know, a bamboo skewer or whatever you like to do this. This is just a way of getting that corner a little bit more defined. Now, you don't have to do it this way, by the way. I mean, you can have any damn shape you feel like. It can be round, it can be triangular, it can be heart-shaped, whatever you want. That's the cool thing about slabs. Because there's no floor to any of this, it's basically, at this point, just kind of a tube, a graduated cylinder. And I can move things around any which way I like. Now, if I really wanted to sharpen up the corners, I would get a paddle out and kind of spank it into the exact correct shape. But I actually want more of a soft rectangle. And at this point, this edge looks good to me. The top part will need some fussing, but I'll do that in a minute. I want to get the floor on. So again, toothbrush and water. Like so, all along the surface of this. Picking it up, flipping it over, putting it roughly where I want it to be. Again, I'm trying to look at this down from the top and make sure the silhouette is where I want it to be. And kind of wriggle. Where are you going? Take the knife, and I'm trimming off like about a 1/4 inch around. I like to leave that little extra bit right there, and because that gives me a little extra slab to sort of, you know, kind of curl up onto the slab that's sitting there, and that makes for a really solid attachment point, but you can always take that down later if you want. At least this is a good place to start. Peeling the clay up away from the piece. I'm going to grab one of these postcards. You can see like the slab here is kind of stuck to the plastic when I cut it, which is normal. So I just pick up the plastic shim. Put it on here, and now this, because this is paper, will peel away. And if it doesn't peel away, who cares? It'll burn away. All right, so now that I've got this on here, I want to sort of push this up. See how just the tip of my finger is kind of pushing the little slabby slab up there to make sure that it's on. What I mean by kind of rolling that slab on, it sort of makes for a more secure attachment. And you can always smooth that down later if you want to, but I think it's really helpful to have that little extra curl at the bottom. Little bit of smoothing along here just to make sure that that seam is nicely compressed. And I can go ahead and start zhuzhing and making sure that those corners are more clearly defined. Time with this. This part is, to me, at any rate, one of the very fun parts about working with slabs. The kind of zhuzh, you can fuss with it until it looks just the way you want it to look. To me, this is sort of the fun part. Not everybody feels that way. That's okay. I want to keep this square shape a little bit soft, not perfectly crisp and hard-edged. So, but that's my personal choice. All right. Now, at this point, I can pick it up and kind of do a little bit of trimming if I want to make the slab on the bottom disappear a bit more. I don't know that I want it to disappear altogether. I mean, my personal aesthetic, and this is not everybody's, this is just mine, is that I like it when the slab on the bottom, you can tell that that's a slab on the bottom. It's a very satisfying aspect to me, because then it sort of makes itself known how you made the piece, and I like that. But that's just me. Who cares? You don't have to think that way. yeah. So if you wanted, you could just, if you wanted to take this all off, you could just kind of keep going at this stage. Smooth it even more, really kind of get in there and subtract some of the parts that are sticking out to the point where it looks perfectly smooth and like one solid piece. That's a personal aesthetic choice. Now, whether or not I add something at the lip, that's up to you. I don't have it on this one, but I've done it on other ones, and I kind of like the way that the slab down here and the slab up here can echo each other, and it also adds a little bit of extra strength to the shape. But again, that's a personal choice, and you don't need to do it. So don't feel like you have to. But if you want to, let me show you. You can just take a strip, and it doesn't need to be all that much. A little bit toothbrush and water. Again, I'm having the seam start in the middle of the piece, not on the corners. I'm just sort of placing that down, adding all the way around, making sure this inside seam stays like smooth, like there's no transition between the two. So I don't want it hanging over the inside. I want this little slab to be hanging over the outside. Let them overlap and then cut through both to get perfect match, like so. Okay, a little bit of compression down into the slab. Smoothing the interior, like so. So it's nice and strong. So there we go. That's pretty good. Okay, I'm going to set this aside and get to work on our feet. And I just want some reasonably regular sized, or when I mean regular, I just mean like the same size rectangles. So I do that by stacking them on each other, cut, cut. I mean, you can measure. I'm not great at measuring. I'm kind of bad at it, as a matter of fact. So I don't usually measure. Things come out better when I don't measure, which is weird. I know. Let's see, how big do I want to make this? Yeah. So I'm starting off with one double stack chunk, right? And I can separate those stacks like so if I need to. And here, wait a minute. So see, now I have 4 feet like that, ta-da, that are all the same size. And I'm going to make 2 more. So see, I've got 4 feet and one side is higher than the other side. To make that transition smooth, I'm going to use the bevel cutter again. So bevel cut. And so 1. And 2. Like so. And water. Get these guys stuck on each other. And see, that makes that angled foot that will give our brush holder, draining brush holder, its tilt that helps it drain so well. Now this clay is really wet, so I'm being pretty light with the toothbrush and water. You'd want to be more thorough with something that was drier. There. So now this bad boy, I just flip. While I'm here, this is a good moment to put your name on things, which I never do. Oops. A little bit of toothbrush and water again. Okay, let's talk a little bit about feet. There's a tendency for feet to sort of pop off a lot in the drying process. And you'll notice, like, I'm not using that much water in this, and that's oftentimes one of the problems, is that people either do too little slipping and scoring, or they don't compress afterwards. Because this is so wet, I can get away without using as much water as I normally would, as much slipping and scoring as I normally would. But I definitely have to make sure I compress, because otherwise these babies will pop right off and all of this will be for nothing. The feet really do make a good difference, I think. If you're having trouble to getting all the way around the feet, don't forget we have these little guys, so that way you can sort of twist the piece around so that you can get the access that you need. From all sides, right? These feet have sides. We want to address all of them. Once I've got that, then put this bad boy down, give it a little, and that also helps compress. You can put your hand on the inside if you want to sort of squish down, but this is a little narrow, so I'll use the blunt end of my needle, of my knife, to make sure I get in there and squish from this side into where the feet are. So now we're just about ready to add the little drain right here. So I'm just going to take a little ball of nice squishy clay. Roll it out. Cut it in half. And I can use this little pencil to help me make my little drain, like so. Going to go on here. Now later on, when the clay is drier, I'll go back to clean up this this hole. Because the clay is so soft, as I push through, you kind of wind up with like a very rough part of it where it goes into the inside of the vessel, and you want to clean that out before you fire it, because if you don't, then you're going to have a very rough surface, and the liquid's going to be trying to get past that rough surface before it can drain out. So that means you'll be leaving liquid on the inside of the piece. When what you want it for is to drain smoothly. So that will have to happen. But that needs to happen later on when it's drier. Right now it's too soft. Okay, so that's it for now. Ta-da! Little brush drainer liquid can drain smoothly out. And that tilt also encourages whatever toothbrushes or anything to hang like this over your sink, so that any drips from the bristles are just going straight into your sink. I think it's a super useful tool. Okay?